Welcome to a Ragamuffin Archive Revisited special presentation, Rich Mullins in America. I'm Joe Cook. Every week on this program, we dive deep into our archives and beyond to bring you some of the best rare recordings by Rich Mullins and a Ragamuffin band, as well as other artists who worked with them or were influenced by them. But this week, with the 4th of July coming up, we wanted to do something a little different and take a look at songs by Rich Mullins that are distinctly American. Many of these are songs that were inspired by America and by the beauty Rich often found as he moved or traveled around the country. And yet other songs deal with Rich's experience of being a Christian in America and how he wrestled with what that means. As always, I'll be giving background info on the recordings that we play and hopefully providing some extra context. But joining me this week will be my good friend, Chris Marchand. Chris is an author, blogger, podcaster, and Anglican priest, and he'll be taking a deeper look at the songs themselves and sharing some reflections throughout the show. So join us for the next 2 hours as we take a journey across America through these incredible songs. Many you'll know, and some you may be hearing for the first time ever. This is Rich Mullins in America.
Well, sorry.
I wanted to say something.
Okay, we'll sing the lead. Well, no, I think I found a part that I can sing that won't walk on our but let's try it out.
Really? As far as you guys go, as far as you guys that need to change go, I didn't really know, but there's a central African student that might get in and out of the band.
By the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. That's good. I like it. Okay. Play ball!
My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes are ripe restored. He has loosed the fateful lightning of his terror force with his sword, and he's marching. Marching on. He has sounded for the trumpet which shall never sound retreat. The sifting of the hearts and men before his judgment seat. Oh, be swift my soul to answer him. Be jubilant my feet. Hey, feet keep marching. Keep on marching on. Keep on marching. Keep on marching on. Well, in the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea. with the glory in his bosom, he transfigures you and me. And as he died to make man holy, let us die to keep them free. Keep marching, keep on marching on. Keep marching, keep on marching on.
Well, that was Rich Mullins and a demo he recorded in 1983 with Rick Blair and some of their friends from Cincinnati. And at the time, that was a pretty contemporary sounding version of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. But when it was released a couple years later on Benny Hester's album Benny From Here, the song was called Marching On. Before that, Rich and Avenue G rehearsing the Star Spangled Banner, and that was taped backstage during a pre-concert rehearsal in Columbus, Ohio, back on November 18th, 1989. And you know, that is actually from one of the earliest videos, if not the earliest rare or unreleased Rich Mullins video that was ever uploaded to YouTube. In fact, a couple years before we started Ragamuffin Archive, or before Rich Mullins' early music, or really before anybody started uploading Rich Mullins videos, YouTube user Harris Whistles uploaded that video on April 25th, 2008. So it's been up there for 15 years, but a great rendition of the national anthem from Rich Mullins and Avenue G. All right, well, I'm Joe Cook. Welcome to this special edition of Ragamuffin Archive Revisited, Rich Mullins in America. And I want to introduce my co-host for this week's festivities. He's one of my closest friends. He's been my podcasting partner on multiple shows. Of course, it's Chris Marchand. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah.
Hey, man, thank you so much for doing this. And, you know, I wanted to ask you, because I know you, and you're a very busy guy, and, you know, you're a teacher, and you, like I said, do all these, you have like 10 different podcasts that you're always working on. And, but I had this idea to do this show focusing on Rich's American songs. And I really reached out to you pretty last minute, and I wasn't sure you could, because I know how busy you get, but you kind of jumped at it. And so I just wanted to ask you, I was wondering, like, what was it about this idea that drew you to doing this, looking at Rich's American journey through his music?
Well, you know, what's interesting, I've written these reflections for all these songs that you've chosen, and most of them I'm pretty familiar with. And there's some from the early music from Beth's, you know, collection that are a little bit more new to me. I think what really stuck out to me was how everything I'm going to say, everything that everybody's going to hear right now, is just scratching the surface. So I could spend 5 pages just talking about all the symbolism in the land of my sojourn. And I think what I see in the depth of these lyrics is Mullins has done something strange. And I mean, this would be another conversation, but to my mind, he has woven together imagery of America with our faith, with the Bible, unlike anybody that I've seen, like in contemporary times. And so I think what I jumped about it is just the depth and the beauty, and there's just so much meaning to draw from. And you know, for me, maybe someday something like this can turn into a book, but who knows? We'll see.
One of the things I'm so glad to have you here doing it is I've always approached Rich's music. I mean, I certainly get a lot from his music and from his lyrics. You know, his lyrics are incredible. But I have sometimes just a difficult time expressing, you know, the depth of it and what it means to me. And that's something that I've always felt was like a gift for you. Whereas I tend to approach things more from that archivist standpoint. And I really like the dates and locations and all of that stuff. And that it's easier for me to wrap my brain around that and then to try to unpack a song, like you said, Land of My Sojourn, which by the way, I always love because it's the only song of Rich's that mentioned the area I grew up in, which is when he mentions the New Jersey shoreline there, obviously talking about Atlantic City, and I grew up in South Jersey. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about that song later in the show. For me, one of the things about Rich and his outlook on America, it's so difficult sometimes to pin down because Rich, I think we all have this tendency to look at Rich Mullins from like, oh, okay, like he was looking at this the way I look at this, right? He's coming from my perspective. I think, Rich agrees with me on this. And at the same time, like the more you read about Rich or the more stories you hear about him, he really was a guy who was tough to pin down. And I was on the phone last week with a guy named David Bunker, and David, him and his wife, they were friends with Rich. And David, he's currently the director for the Rich Mullins Center for Creative Christian Expression that they're starting over at Judson University up in your neck of the woods in Illinois. And he told me this story that is kind of hilarious and also absolutely confusing. But it was a great story. I think it was really a good example of why I wanted to dive in and do this show this week. And that was that David told me the story about how he was out on the road with Rich, traveling with him to a few different concerts. And he said they did this stop at a church, and it was a fairly conservative church. And during the show, Rich, gave one of his mini, like those mini sermons that he would give. And he started preaching to this really conservative congregation about how, no Christian has any business ever pledging allegiance to the American flag. And, making this congregation uncomfortable like he tended to do. But David said he gave this really thought-provoking, really solid argument on why a Christian should never say the Pledge of Allegiance. But then he said a few nights later, they were at another church, and he said it was a much more liberal church. And he said during the show, Rich starts preaching to this more liberal congregation and telling them all the reasons that they as Christians should pledge allegiance to the American flag. And he just gave the complete opposite message just a few days later that he had given this other church. And, my immediate, reaction to something like that is like, okay, so I guess Rich Mullins was just an absolute troll sometimes, and he was just messing with us all. But I've been thinking about that story a lot over the last week, trying to wrap my brain around what would compel him to do that. And just thinking to myself that, maybe to Rich, this is a guy who traveled all over the world, not even just around America, but all over the world playing, every kind of church or denomination you can think of. And, playing for these more conservative churches and these more liberal churches. And maybe just to Rich, the American flag had just not, at that point in his life, maybe it just wasn't a hang-up for him anymore. And he was viewing this, maybe this hang-up that he felt one congregation had versus what another congregation had. And he was just trying to cut through all that to the heart of what really mattered. I don't know. I can't fully say. But it just goes to show that sometimes it's a little harder to pin him down than just when I start to think I'm getting a grip on Rich Mullins, I learn something new about him that just shatters everything that I think I knew.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, in a moment, we're going to play a song from a concert that Rich held in South Bend, Indiana, at LeSEA Broadcasting back in 1994. It was held after a seminar that he and Beaker did there. And, I wanted to feature this song tonight because it's definitely one of those songs of his that was inspired by the beauty that he saw in America, especially near his home in Bellsburg, Tennessee. And, of course, the song is With the Wonder. And I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on this one, because not only do I know that it's a song that you really love, but you also had the chance to visit Rich's home in Bellsburg just last year, as well as Johnson's Creek, which is mentioned in the song. So, Chris, are there any thoughts that you can share on the song With the Wonder?
Well, that's interesting. My first Rich Mullins album was Winds of Heaven, Stuff of Earth. And, it's one of the first songs on that album. And I loved it. And it has a different groove to it, a great piano part to it. But what's funny about it is it remained mysterious to me. I don't know what Johnson's Creek is. The Cumberland River, it's just a river, right? What do I know about rivers? They're everywhere. You cross them on the highway when you're going from one place to the next. And every now and then there's some rivers that you actually love. So it was actually quite strange, almost mysterious to be able to go to this place and see it. And I remember when we were driving up, this is a fan weekend for Rich Mullins, and we were in these vans, right? Kind of like these 15 passenger vans, and some people were talking. It was really kind of funny because like some of the people were talking, and then our driver, he was like, "Oh, there it is. There's the Cumberland River." And there was these beautiful bluffs kind of off in the distance. And I just wanted to yell to everybody, just shut up, like take in the wonder, like quit your yapping. We're on Holy Land here. And but they kept talking about it. Was really funny too, because like here we are on this fan weekend, and the people there were getting to know each other, and they were going off talking about whatever they wanted to talk about. And I thought, the imperfection of it all, so it goes. But there you go. That's kind of that reflection. So I actually had the chance to go to this house and go down to Johnson's Creek. And wasn't quite there long enough, but it was beautiful, and kind of wish I could do a little bit of a retreat there sometime, kind of really take it all in and kind of walk in, the place a little bit more of, where Mullins lived for a number of years of his life. But I also prepared my own reflection about the song as I was listening to it once again. Every artist has to make a decision about how they are going to represent a sense of place in their work. Their hometown, the region they're from, the places they live, and the uniqueness of the culture they call their own. It's a delicate balance because most of us grow up in places no one else has heard of. This is why many artists move to the big cities, New York, Los Angeles, and they end up setting their art there as a backdrop. As Americans, those places are a cultural shorthand we all immediately understand. In the song With the Wonder, Mullins does the opposite. He describes a place not many know about and makes it seem like an already established, iconic landmark. Johnson's Creek, the Cumberland River. This was a much beloved area for Mullins. The song describes the area around his home in Bellsburg, Tennessee, where he purchased an old parsonage out in the country instead of moving right into Nashville. Johnson's Creek was the location of a famous photo of Mullins that he took down by the dock there that many people recognize from one of the books that came out after his death. But note what Mullins does. He takes a specific location, a place dear to him, and universalizes it into a song of praise for all creation. We tend to think that where we live is the center of the universe, that we are the chosen people. But Mullins reminds us that all of creation is filled with the glory of God, that everywhere we go is the center of the universe, because that's where God is. And we share that wonder with everyone around us, where God's presence is bursting forth at every turn. If only we'd go outside, embrace our place in the world, and join in the ongoing song of creation.
Thanks, Chris. Here's the song, Rich and Beaker performing With the Wonder.
Down at Johnson's Creek, the trees grow tall, like a man who feeds the soul on your word. I can look in the water, I can see the stars fall, hear the fires crackle and the crickets chirp, and there are bluffs on the banks of the Cumberland. I can see the sunrise from a world away, and I can see the marvelous things that you have done in the beautiful world that you have made. 2, 3. In the winter it's white, in the summer it's green. And in the fall it's orange and red and gold. And then it comes alive with the rites of spring, when the rivers thaw and the flowers unfold. And there are beads of dew on a spider's web, and there are motes of dust in these beams of light. And we who are bone and spittle and muscle and sweat, we live together in a world it's good to be alive. 'Cause it flows and floats, it falls and it climbs, it spins and sputters and spurs. You fill this world with the wonders round every turn. And it buzzes and beeps, it chimneys and shines, it rattles and batters and purrs. You fill this world with wonders, and I'm filled with the wonder of your world. And if there's a better world and a brighter day, even brighter than the very one we're in, we'd all be fools to think that I could be made by the hands of foolish men. So Lord, to you we sing our deepest praise, and to you we sing our very loudest song. And while we live in the world that you have made, we live together in a world that is to come. 'Cause it flutters and floats, it falls and it climbs, it spins and sputters and spurs. You fill this world with wonders round every turn. And it buzzes and beeps, it chimneys and shines, it rattles and patters and purrs. You fill this world with wonders, and I'm filled with the wonder of your world.
I was walking through the park on my way to where I work, and saw the statue of this woman holding this dead soldier up. And kind of a morbid kind of statue, but it's in a place called Centennial Park, so what do you expect? And the little thing down at the bottom of the statue said, let's see, we have what we have because he gave his best. And I was just thinking, about... Well, one thing I thought about was, what about all the German soldiers that gave their best? What about all the Soviet soldiers that have given their best? And they keep giving their best, and like the Soviets keep ripping them off. And it doesn't always work out that just because you give a lot doesn't always mean that things are going to go well for you. And I began to realize something that anew that I realized all along, that I was always taught. And that is that the church is the institution through which Christ wants to redeem the world to himself. And it's only when the world is redeemed, it's only when people have come to know Christ, and it's only when governments have submitted to the Lordship of Christ, and when people have submitted to the Lordship of Christ, that there will be any peace, that there will be any life worth having. And it's just an exciting thing to know that we can be a part of that.
Well, that was another one of those demos that Rich Mullins recorded with some of his musician friends back in 1983, and in fact, that is the second of 3 demos from those sessions that we're going to be featuring on this week's show. And that song, of course, well, that was a pretty rockin' version of A Few Good Men. And you know, if you bought the live Deep Valley album that was released earlier this year, you probably recognized a bit of that story that Rich told before the song. And in fact, that clip that you heard was actually recorded at Deep Valley Christian Camp, though that was not from the same concert as the album. That was from 1984. What you just heard was a never-before-heard clip from when Rich played the song at Deep Valley a year earlier, in 1983. Anyway, that clip was courtesy of our dear friend Beth Snell-Lutz and Rich Mullins' early music, so our thanks to Beth for sharing that clip with us. And you know, Beth was the executive producer on the Deep Valley record, which just recently became available on vinyl. And my co-host this week, Chris Marchand, well, he and I were honored to work with her on that project as co-producers. And we're going to go back to Chris in just a moment so he can tell us a little bit about our next song, Calling Out Your Name. And the version of that song that we're going to play, well, that was recorded back in March of 1997 in South Bend, Indiana. It's Rich and the Ragamuffins from the Live from Studio B concert. And here's Chris to share his thoughts on Calling Out Your Name.
Like with The Wonder, Calling Out Your Name somehow accomplishes the miracle of evoking, even personifying, the place in which the lyrics sing about. Mullins does this in a lot of his songs. When I hear that intro, I feel the expansive sky above me. I feel like a small dot of nothing, alone on the prairies. I feel alone and yet enveloped by the love of God. Being alone, I can sing out with all my being. No one but the hawks and pheasants and buffaloes will hear me anyway. I don't know if anyone has ever noticed it before, but this song is a merging of Old Testament imagery within an American, especially Native American context. It's Mullins' attempt to weave the Bible into our landscape here. The song is a convergence of images and ideas. It might as well have been called Psalm of the Prairies. Indeed, Mullins makes the nation's flat middle seem like the Promised Land. Here is another hymn of praise demonstrating his belief that indeed, the Holy King of Israel does love us here in America. But lest we get too caught up in the importance of our own time and place, Mullins can't help but end the song by reminding us that we are but a speck, and there is a reality beyond time, beyond this place. And though we may feel small, it leads us once again to abandon ourselves and burst out in praise.
Well, the moon moved past Nebraska and split a laughter on them cold Dakota hills. The angels danced on Jacob's stairs. Yeah, they danced on Jacob's stairs. There is this silence in the Badlands and over Kansas. The whole universe was still. Whisper of a prayer. Whisper of a prayer. And a single hawk bursts into flight, and in the east the whole horizon is in flames. And I feel the thunder in the sky, see the sky about to rain, and to hear the prairies calling out your name. I can feel the earth tremble beneath the rumbling of the buffalo bulls. Fury in a pheasant's wings. There's fury in a pheasant's wings. It tells me the Lord is in his temple, and there is still a faith to make the mountains move, and a love that can make the heavens ring. I've seen love make heaven ring. Where the sacred rivers meet beneath the shadow of the keeper of the flames, I feel the thunder in the sky. See see the sky about to rain, and to hear the prairies calling out your name. Oh, 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 oh. From the place where morning gathers, you can look sometimes forever till you see what time may never know. What time may never know. Just how the Lord takes by its corners this whole world and shakes us forward and He shakes us free, and we run wild with this hope. Oh, let's run wild with this hope. I hope that this thirst will not last long, that it will soon drown in a song not sung in vain. And I feel the thunder in the sky, see the sky about to rain, hear the prairies calling out your name. And I know this thirst will not last long, that it will soon drown in a song not sung in vain. And I feel the thunder in the sky, see the sky about to rain, the prairies I am calling out your name.
I think a lot of people think that moving out here to the reservation was some kind of heroic move, and for me, it was kind of a desperate move, because after having the privilege of getting to travel around and see a lot of different things and all that, I began to realize more and more that my own cultural biases really colored the way I read the Bible and really skewed what of God's great truth I was able to receive. And I needed to get outside of the culture that I was raised in and try to hang out with people who weren't from that culture and who had a different take on the scriptures. And what I have found, one of the great advantages of living out here is I basically live in an occupied country, where there is a puppet government that has very limited power. And what you see here is exactly what I think you would have seen in Palestine at the time of Christ, that there were people who were sharply divided over the issues of whether to be a traditionalist or to be progressive. Just as you had Sadducees who would have been the progressives and would have said, let's adopt Hellenism, etc. And then you had the Pharisees who said, no, let's separate ourselves from the rest of the world. You see the exact same thing here. This is a shepherding people, and one of the very important images in the gospel and through the whole scripture is the image of the shepherd. So I have learned a lot, and I wish everyone had the advantage that I have of being here among these people, because there's a great deepening of my understanding and of my faith just by being here.
Well, I've been thinking about you, and I wish you the best. But every night I go to sleep, I miss you a little less. And still somehow I love you more with each new day. So I thought I'd write you, yeah, I thought I'd send my new address. I've been staring at your picture, sitting here on my desk, 'cause I thought you might be wondering if I'm okay. Well, I'm alive and I'm living in a place where the world's crust has shifted, and the stars in the Milky Way, they're giving a party for New Mexico. Yes, I've come to the desert
just to find my way to forever. And you are so welcome here if you're ever in New Mexico. So I wanna thank the one who leads us for the way that he has led, for the times we spent together, and for the times we ain't seen yet, and still somehow this is a path we must both walk alone. And we can't measure the distance, but we'll treasure every step. And I know his love will give us the strength we need to press on. So let's hold on to him, and he will show us our way home. And I'm alive and I'm living in a place where the world's crust is shifted, and the stars in the Milky Way, they're giving a party for New Mexico. Yes, I've come to the desert just to find my way to forever. And you are so welcome here if you're ever in New Mexico. 'Cause the stars can be so bright, the air so thin, and as I'm looking out tonight, I think about you. We're looking for him. And I'm alive and I'm living in a place where the world's crust is shifted, and the stars in the Milky Way, they're giving a party for New Mexico. Yes, I've come to the desert just to find my way to forever. And you are so welcome here if you're ever in New Mexico. Yes, you are so welcome here if you're ever in New Mexico.
Well, that was a live performance from Mitch McVicker with some backup from Rich Mullins, taped in April of 1997 for the Wheaton College television program The Exchange. And you know, that was the only song we'll be playing tonight that does not feature Rich Mullins on lead vocals. But he did co-write it with Mitch, and in fact, they wrote that song together at the trailer that they rented out on the Navajo reservation in New Mexico. And of course, New Mexico is the name of the song. And the clip you heard right before that was part of an on-camera interview that Rich did right outside that home in San Benito, New Mexico, with friend and former WHME radio DJ Jim Valdheis. And that clip was featured in the documentary The Work You Began, The Last Days of Rich Mullins. Well, right now we're going to play another song from Rich Mullins' early music, and this one was taped during a concert that Rich held at Cincinatti Bible Seminary sometime around 1977. And it's a song called Goodbye, Texas Creek.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. A lot of my songs, well, a lot of my life is all involved in running into people and then having them, kind of duck out on you about 5 minutes later. And I think that's the way with all of us. They're very, it's kind of hard, to make any kind of relationship as mobile as we all are. I lived in Richmond until I was 18, and now I live in Cincinnati, and pretty soon I'll be living, somewhere else. And it's always kind of neat because I've got friends anywhere that I want to go. and I can go and stay cheaper than if I had to stay in a hotel. So they come in kind of handy there. But this is a song I wrote, no offense really, actually. I like you besides for coming to spend the night at your house. This is a song I wrote. We went to, some of us went on a backpacking trip, and this is called Goodbye Texas Creek. And it's just, I don't know if it's about Texas Creek or whatever inspired this song, but it's that kind of a thing where, you know, we run into people and we run away from people, and they go on relatively unchanged by our presence, and we go on relatively unchanged by their presence. And it doesn't really, you know, somehow we're all cool enough that we never get involved with one another, enough that, you know, it really has any real effect on us. It goes, I'd make an appeal to your conscience, but that would be no use. I hear this is the way you want it. I'll take it this way too. Maybe I could kill you. Maybe I could take you home. I'll just leave you still to be alone. I'll make myself a new melody, a new rhythm. I'll write me a new song. I hope I'll be forgiven when I'm gone. But now my dreams lie shattered, laying in pieces around my feet. But it don't really matter now to me. Goodbye, Texas Creek. Sure glad I came here, and I surely hate to leave. But don't ever ask me why. The times we love so slip us by. I know you'll keep rolling on, unchanged when I came in the very same way when I'm gone. But did you want it that way? So make me a new rhythm, or write me a new song. I hope that I'll be forgiven tomorrow when I'm gone. And all my dreams lie shattered, broken pieces lay around my feet. But that don't really matter now to me. Goodbye, Texas Creek. Sure that I came here, and I surely hate to leave. Don't you ever ask me why, that the people that we love so pass us by. I know they'll keep rolling on, unchanged when I came in the very same way when I'm gone. But did you want it that way? And did you want it that way? And did you want it that way? Goodbye, Texas Creek. So glad I came here, and I surely hate to leave you. I'll never ever know why that the times we love so pass us by. But I know you'll keep rolling on, unchanged when I came in the very same way when I'm gone. But did you want it that way?
One of my earliest memories is of me running around my house, dancing and singing my lungs out to The Other Side of the World. I still contest it's one of the greatest album openers of all time, and how can you argue with a 7-year-old's logic? Well, I would sing along with those kids singing in another language, pretending I was them on the other side of the world. I think I found a translation of the words on the old Kid Brothers website, but I think it's almost better if you don't know what they're singing. Just sing along, knowing it's a prayer, knowing they're singing it for us and we can join in. The thing is, we're so good at making divisions, of separating ourselves from the ins and the outs. But this song is a reminder we're not so different from all those other people over there, and that faith in Christ is what counts. Mullins doesn't say it in the song, but that New Jerusalem that isn't so easy to build, it isn't America, people. We are to be a people filled with mercy and with glory on our faces. That doesn't sound like national identity to me. When we dance and sing and pray together, all those temporary markers of identity that we think makes us so important just melt away. All those things we think make up our true identity fade into the distance when we realize it's God's kingdom we've been longing for all along.
Other side of the world is not so far away as I thought that it was. As once I was so far away. The other side of the world is not so far away. And the distance just dissolves into the love. Into the love. And the New Jerusalem won't be so easy to build as you hoped it would be. Lord, I hoped it would be easy to build. The New Jerusalem won't be so easy to build. Many bellies are filling, many hearts to breathe. And set them free.
That was a live performance of The Other Side of the World. Great song from the Winds of Heaven, Stuff of Earth album. And, that performance was recorded on the final night of the World as Best as I Remember It Volume 1 tour. That was at the Salem Church of God in Dayton, Ohio, back in March of 1992. And, of course, you can see that performance on Ragamuffin Archive in the John Atkins concert film Rich Mullins, The Concert as Best I Remember It. Well, in a moment, we're going to play one of the very last recordings ever made of Rich Mullins. It was videotaped at the Cruise home in Elgin, Illinois in September of 1997. And our good friend Andrew Montanera, who directed the documentary about Rich Mullins and the Cruise family, well, he was going through some of their VHS tapes and he discovered this previously lost video that they had taped of an old unreleased Rich Mullins song. And so we're going to play that for you in just a moment. But first, here's Chris Marchand to share some thoughts on that song, Falling of So Many Tears.
What's funny about the places we're from is all the conflicted feelings we feel about them. This is what the Falling of So Many Tears reminds me of. We grow up longing to get away from where we're from and making fun of all those people we grew up with. But then, once we move away, we find ourselves longing to get back there, and then defending those people at all costs. It's also funny that these places can make us feel sad and bittersweet, but also happy and fulfilled all at once. The Falling of So Many Tears is a bit like an impressionist painting. I can make out the basics of what it's about. Indiana, people going about their lives, local landmarks to connect with. But like a decently fuzzy Monet painting, the song is more about the feeling it evokes, the impression it leaves. It reminds me of home and how I love it, but that it also makes me sad, and I know I'll need to leave it, while everybody else stays. Sometimes, in order to understand a place, you have to leave it behind.
Well, Bloomington's a lovely town in south central Indiana. And her university stands proud, all limestone trimmed in ivy, with the aluminum siding on the houses standing near say that it's all in the falling of so many tears. And the countryside around her lies white frosted in the winter. And her quarries look like the tombs of the kings whose souls return from heaven every weeknight promptly at 11, just to wipe them sidewalks clear of what's all in the falling of so many tears. But me, I love you always like the sun must love the morning. With the bomb ever rising, I'll be rising up in you. And I can hear you whisper with a voice as velvet as evening that you will not be leaving when this night is through. Well, the young and tender college boys, they've all gone home for summer. And the streets have been abandoned to the barmaids and the locals, and all us has-beens and us hopefuls agar mugs and guzzle beers, say that it's all in the falling of so many tears. It's all in the falling of so many tears.
You know, how many of you are from Indiana, actually? Okay, I will let you in on a secret. I know about you people. Because I come from Indiana, too. When I was growing up, I always thought, the Appalachian people were so dumb. Mostly because they really are. Anyway, I always thought hillbillies were really just bizarre people. And so I always kept it a big secret that my dad's family moved here from Howling, Kentucky, of all places. His dad was a coal miner. And they're on their way up to Detroit to get better jobs in factories than what they could get in coal mines. And they ran out of gas near Richmond, which is how my dad and mom met and how I got here. So I was always, because my mom, she's a good Hoosier stock from way back, good Quaker family, the whole bit. And I was always real embarrassed about my dad's family until I started checking around and I found out that Indiana is almost entirely populated with hillbillies that ran out of gas on their way to Detroit to get jobs. So
That was an old lap dulcimer instrumental of Rich's that he wrote for his father, John Mullins. And for years, the actual name of that song was unknown, despite the fact that it was officially released, posthumously, on the VHS and DVD of Rich's 1997 Lufkin concert. But for many years, the song was simply referred to as John, after Rich's dad. But it wasn't until 11 years ago when Peter Cruz uploaded a video of Rich performing the song at his house during Rich's final concert that Beth Snell-Lutz commented and let us all know once and for all that in fact the song was originally called the Harlan County Waltz, which of course, as you heard in the clip before the song, Rich's father's side of the family was from Harlan County, Kentucky. And that version of the Harlan County Waltz, the one that you just heard, that was not the performance from Rich's last concert, but it was from one of his final concerts. That was recorded in August of 1997 in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Well, even though that was a later recording of the song, Beth Lutz and Rich Mullins' early music do have recordings of it that go all the way back to at least 1977, not long after he wrote it. And right now, I want to read something that Beth wrote a while back about the inspiration behind some of those Appalachian songs that Rich wrote in the mid-1970s. If you knew Richard or ever saw him in concert, you heard him tell stories of his dad's family making their way north from Harlan County, Kentucky, in Appalachia. The Irish roots of this heritage always pulled him in. Well, she went on to talk about how in 1976, he found himself sitting with his lap dulcimer and writing that song, the Harlan County Waltz, and also this next song that we're going to play in just a moment, which was recorded in 1977 at a Sacred Music concert in Erlanger, Kentucky. The song is called Homeward Ways, but before we play it, here's Chris Marchand to talk about it.
The song Homeward Ways is a reminder that sometimes home is this place in which we live, sometimes it's this place that we've left, and sometimes it's this place we're going to. Home is a place we haven't gotten to yet. In Homeward Ways, we find Mullins in wandering mode, and again, longing for home. He doesn't exactly know where he's going yet in life, but he trusts God is there with him. And he's also longing to spend his life with his love. Isn't it interesting how we trek through life? It's all a walk of faith. And most of the time, we're just hoping we're on the right path and going somewhere worthwhile. But also, we don't want to go it alone. It's better when there's someone there with us. God and people, they go together. We need them both. And we also have to keep walking.
This song is, it just talks about the fact that, you know, a lot of times during our lives we're going to be walking around in weird places. And, but the fact that we're all walking towards home is some kind of an organizing factor. And that makes sense out of all the places we go. It makes sense of us going to Maysville or going to Mount Gilead or going to Erlanger or wherever. And so that's the story behind this song. And this is the song behind the story.
Thank you. It's nice to be here in Holland. And McVicker is going to play the lap dulcimer for you. I don't know if you're familiar with lap dulcimers, but it was invented in the United States by Irish and Scottish immigrants. And it's a very small instrument, so the advantage of it is that you can play it while you drive. And we were on our way from San Francisco back down to Los Angeles, And there are certain things that I think a lot of people who are not American think that all Americans like, but the reality is no Americans like Los Angeles. And we feel about Los Angeles a lot the same we feel about our presidents. And so we didn't really want to go back there, but we had to go because we had a concert to do. So he was driving the truck and started playing this, and by the time we got there, we had written this song. It's called Where You Are. Talking Daniel in the den of the lions, Jonah in the belly of a whale. Talking 3 Hebrew children and they're standing in a furnace, fiery furnace, but the fire didn't burn them. And the lions didn't bite, and the Lord reached down, and you can be sure that everything turned out right. Oh, you meet the Lord in the furnace, long time till you meet him in the sky. And where you are ain't where you wish that you was. Where your life ain't easy, and the road is rough, but where you are is where he promised to be. From the ends of the world to every point of need. Talking Daniel in the den of the lions, Jonah in the belly of a whale. Talking 3 Hebrew children and they're standing in a furnace, fiery furnace, but the fire didn't burn them. And the lions didn't bite, and the Lord reached down, and you can be sure that everything turned out alright. So you meet the Lord in the furnace, long time but you meet him in the sky. Meet him in your time of a trial, meet him in your hour of prayer, where you can reach out and know that you find that it's right there where you are. However grim it may seem, but this is real life, baby. This ain't no Hollywood dream. And where you are, no matter what you may face, you're gonna find out real soon what they mean when they say. Talking Daniel in the den of lions, Jonah in the belly of a whale. Talking 3 Hebrew children and they're standing in a furnace, fiery furnace, but the fire didn't burn them. And the lions didn't bite, and the Lord reached down, and the Lord reached down, baby. Everything turned out alright. So you meet the Lord in the furnace, long time but you meet him in the sky. Meet him in your time of a trial, meet him in your hour of prayer. You can reach out and know that you'll find that he's there, and the fire won't burn you, and the lions won't bite, and the Lord will reach down, and the Lord will reach down, baby. Everything will turn out alright. So you meet the Lord in the furnace, long time but you meet him in the sky high, and then you meet him in the sky. Thank you.
Yet another great lap dulcimer performance right there, though that time it was actually Beaker playing the dulcimer, doing a song that he co-wrote with Rich, and this one was written much later than those other 2 lap dulcimer songs that we played. That was a great live performance of Where You Are, and that one was from a television broadcast from Holland from back in 1994. And you know, we're going to play another song from that Holland concert in just a little bit. All right, well, of course, that song wasn't necessarily about America per se, but we included it for a couple of reasons. First, Rich's Appalachian roots and his love for the lap dulcimer still really shine through on that performance. But also, we wanted to play it because, as we heard Rich discuss before the song, it was one of those many songs that he was inspired to write while driving around and experiencing America. And you know, that's also the case with this next song. This is a song from Rich's 1987 album, Pictures in the Sky, and definitely one of the ones that he felt inspired to write as he drove around looking at the beauty of America, and in particular, the beauty of his then home state, Tennessee. The song is called Be With You, which I think is a favorite for a lot of Rich fans. And we're going to play a live performance from the Christian music TV show Light Music. And you know, it's a great song in general, but I gotta say, I really love this version of the song, in particular because on Light Music, Rich played the song on a baby grand piano. And I just love hearing this song on a real piano, rather than the electric piano that he used on the album or during other live performances around that same time. So we're going to play the song in just a moment, but first, here's a clip from Light Music of Rich discussing the song with the show's host, the late Tom Green.
I asked you to do another song off your album, the latest album, Be With Me.
Oh, Be With You.
Be With You, I mean, yes.
Okay.
Because I really like that song. It's
yeah,
really
nice.
Me too. How did that come about?
Well, that was a bit of a long song to write. It started, I was driving through the mountains in East Tennessee, which I think is, really about the prettiest place around. And so I was looking out the window and thinking how pretty everything was, and I thought how bad it would look if someone bombed it. And I thought it was a bad thing, that people could do that.
A strange mind, Rich.
Oh, well, you have to think of those things in the 20th century. And so I was really kind of mad and I thought, gee, it's a shame they can't build bombs that would kill people and not damage, like the mountains and the trees and everything, because people, most of us, deserve to die at best. And, but, trees don't hurt anybody. They just kind of hang around. And so that's when I, got real upset. And then I thought, man, you have really sick priorities because, trees are going to be destroyed in the end anyway, at least what we can see of them. And, but people are going to last forever. And so maybe it would be better not to kill anybody.
Sounds good to me. Let's do the song, okay?
Everybody, each and all, we're gonna die eventually. And it's no more or less our faults than it is our destinies. So now, Lord, I come to you, asking only for your grace. You know what I put myself through, all those empty dreams I chased. So when my body lies in the ruins of the life that nearly ruined me, will you pick up the pieces that were pure and true and breathe your life into them, set them free? And when you start this world over again from scratch, will you make me new out of the stuff that lasts, but that's pure than gold is, clear than glass could ever be? Can I be with you? Can I be with you? And everybody, all and each, from the day that we are born, we have to learn to walk beneath those mercies by which we're drawn. Now we wrestle in the dark with these angels that we can't see. We will move on, although with scars. Oh Lord, move inside of me. When my body lies in the ruins of the lies that nearly ruined me, crash into the sea. And can I be with you? Can I be with you?
It's hard to tell if Mullins was serious or joking about wanting to be the king of the 4th of July. But he does say that he would want to fill up the sky with fireworks were he ever to receive that title, and I think I would agree with him. What else would you do if you were given such a role? The goofy thing about this song is he gives it this provocative title and then spends the rest of the song not talking about America, patriotism, or the holiday at all, but instead about what it means to be alive and God sending his son for us because he loves us so much. Fair enough. The central idea of the song, to me, seems to come in the line, quote, "And my father's a king and he sits on the sky. He's much better at that sort of thing than you or I." And maybe that's the point. Maybe one of the best principles we can ever realize is we weren't meant to be kings and queens. God is much better at running the universe anyway, and it's best that we acknowledge that. But if you ever do wind up getting some authority, such as being the king of 4th of July, you better make the world a better place. Make it more beautiful, more colorful. Go light off some fireworks and bring some joy to people. Maybe that's what we're here to do anyway.
If I were the king of the 4th of July, I'd take my fireworks and I'd fill up the sky. And all us Americans, we get all laugh and feel high. If I were the wind, I would blow us away to a place where no confusion could ever keep us away. We don't have time to laugh, time to love, and time still left to pray. Just keep on rolling, rolling on down to the end. And if you find some things there, come back and let me know. Keep on rolling, rolling on down to the end. If there's something that's there that I surely love to go. Well, I never seen God, but they say he's my friend. And I read in a book all about the son that he sent. And it was love that led him round to the places that he went. And my father's a king, and he sits on the sky. And he's much better at that sort of thing than you or I. Sometimes it makes me wanna laugh, sometimes it makes me wanna break down. Keep on rolling, rolling on down to the end. And if you find some things there, come back and let me know.
ain't got no legs. It speaks to you clearly, but you never know what it says. It sleeps all the time. When the flood comes, it's the first thing to get up. Get out of bed.
Well, that was another beautiful song by Rich Mullins, courtesy of Rich Mullins' early music, called King of the 4th of July. And you know, that was taped during a concert at the Jesus House in Cincinnati back in 1978. And you know, Beth shared with me that Rich actually wrote the bulk of that song on the actual bicentennial on July 4th, 1976. And he wrote it as she stood with him out on a suspension bridge over the Ohio River with Rich along with his brothers Lloyd and David, and they're all standing there watching this huge fireworks display from the bridge, and the song just came to him. Well, in a moment, we're going to go back to that 1994 Howling concert to play a song that very much deals with Rich's relationship with America and his experience of being a Christian in this country. It's a song from his Liturgy, Legacy, and a Ragamuffin Band album, and here's Chris Marchand once again to talk about the song Land of My Sojourn.
I think when we listen to a Rich Mullins songs, our hearts are supposed to ache. With sorrow or with joy, you might ask. Well, yes, both, all of the time. What the Land of My Sojourn offers us as Americans is a chance to be both unsettled and at peace in our nationality. There may be times in our lives where we very much squirm at having to take the title American. Okay then, listen to this song. Take in the beauty of this land and its people and our esoteric traditions. It's okay. It's good to be from here. But conversely, you may be feeling secure in your American identity. Perhaps you're proud of this place and no one could ever convince you otherwise. Perhaps you're feeling this country is a bit superior than all the others, both now and in time immemorial. Well, perhaps this song is your invitation to begin feeling more unsettled. That this place is not our true home and that we carry the same imperfections and corruptions as all the other countries. We're not so special after all. Maybe we could do for some national repentance on a number of levels. But it's Mullins' images that stand out in this song, in what might be one of his best lyrics. Again, he weaves in biblical imagery throughout, merging it with American imagery, reading our scriptures onto the country. Do you see your America in this song? I do. I recognize it everywhere. How do we both love our country and see God's blessing at work here, and yet not hold too dearly to this place? Is there a way to hold loosely to it all while walking as a pilgrim in this land of our sojourn?
And this is a song we wrote about being Christians in America. It's probably the same wherever you are. And the coal trucks come running with their bellies full of coal, and their big wheels are humming down this road that lies open like the soul of a woman who hid the spies who were looking for the land of the milk and the honey. And this road, she is a woman. She was made from a rib cut from the sides of these mountains. Oh, these great sleeping Adams who are lonely even here in paradise, lonely for somebody to kiss them. And I'll sing my song, and I'll sing my song, in the land of my sojourn. And the lady in the harbor, she still holds her torch out to those huddled masses who are yearning for freedom. Still eludes them, and the immigrants' children see their brightest dreams shatter. Here on the New Jersey shoreline, in the greed and the glitter of those high-tech casinos, but some mendicants wander off to a cathedral, and they stoop in the silence, and their prayers are so whispered, and I'll sing their song. And I'll sing their songs in the land of my sojourn. Nobody tells you when you get born here how much you'll come to love it and how you'll never belong here. So I'll call you my country, but I'm lonely for my home, and I wish that I could take you there with me. And down the brown brick spine of some dirty blind alley, all those drain pipes were dripping out the last sons of thunder, while off in the distance the smokestacks were belching back this city's best answer. And the countryside was pocked with all of those mail pouch posters thrown up on the rotting sideboards of these run-down stables, like the one that Christ was born in when the old world started dying and a new world started coming on. And I'll sing his song, and I'll sing his song in the land of my sojourn. And I will sing his song in the land of my sojourn. I will sing his song.
When you listen to the song Save Me, do you feel convicted? I do. The powers and principalities of our world seem to have such a strong grip over our lives, as nations on down to us as individuals. The problem is, when we believe our nation is good, we tend to think our own ruling powers are good, whereas those other people over there, they are the evil ones. They have the evil rulers. They come from the evil country, but not us. What's wonderful about the song Save Me is that Mullins doesn't let anyone off the hook, including himself. We all need saving. It's key that he included a line about both Soviet Russia, where all those dirty Marxist communists live, and Washington, D.C., where all those greedy capitalists live. Perhaps it's best to realize that we're all tempted by the evils of both. This song is about all the vices he was most tempted by. Fame, trendiness, lust, cheap religion, and all the other lies he was prone to believe. When we stop believing that we are good and we lay down these things, that's when we begin to cry out for a Savior. Save us, O Lord.
Save me. put a price tag on. Save me from Soviet propagandists. Lord, save me from Washington. Please save me. Save me. Save me from the slick pop sun laid down in Virgin Vinyl grooves. Save me from any woman who would be turned on to the aftershave I'll use. Save me from trendy religion that makes cheap cliches out of timeless truths. Lord, save me. Please save me.
Well, that was another demo that Rich recorded with his Cincinnati friends back in 1983, and another song that would be released 3 years later on his self-titled album. Of course, that was Save Me. Now, in a moment, we're going to play another live performance of a song from the Liturgy album, but as far as I know, I think this might be the only known live recording of this song, and this does not come from Ragamuffin Archive. This is from a video that was uploaded to YouTube back in 2013 by a guy named Kevin Broxick. And Kevin was a good friend of Rich's from Friends University in Wichita, Kansas. And at the time, he was part of an a cappella group called Kenaniah. And on April 3rd, 1993, the group performed as part of an event at the old Whittier Fine Arts Building at Friends University. And so they invited Rich to come on stage and perform with them. And let me just say, it is a really cool video. You've got to go check it out. If you've never seen it, I'm going to put a link to it in the description. Definitely watch it. And let me just be honest. It is absolutely criminal that in nearly a decade, this video hasn't hit 1,000 views yet. So I'm telling you, after the show tonight, watch it, because let me tell you, it is one of my favorite Rich Mullins videos that has ever surfaced. Rich Mullins and Kenaniah performed 2 songs together that night, and this video is really cool because, one, it's the only known live performance of the song that we're going to play in just a moment, but it's also the only place on earth you're going to find a video of Rich Mullins covering a U2 song. I'm just saying. But right now, we're going to play the other song that they played that night, and this was one at the time they just referred to as Midwestern Boy, though several months later, when it was released on the Liturgy album, it was simply called Hard. So before we play this live performance from Rich Mullins and Kenaniah, here's Chris Marchand once again to talk about the song Hard.
I always like the song Hard because he makes us Midwestern boys proud. I think it stands as a comforting reminder that most of us are just trying to get by day, and that we're probably doing a lot better than those people in Washington anyway. So maybe we're okay.
Well, I am a good Midwestern boy. I give an honest day's work when I can get it. I don't cheat on my taxes. I don't cheat on my girl. I got values that would make the White House jealous. I took it a little much over-impressed to think of Peter and Paul and the apostles. I don't stand up too well against them, I guess, but by the standards around here, I ain't doing that awful. Well, it's hard to turn the other cheek, hard to bless when others curse you. Well, Lord, it's hard to be a man of peace. Lord, it's hard. Lord, it's hard. Lord, it's hard. Well, Lord, it's hard to be like Jesus. Don't you know that it's hard? I've got values that would make the White House jealous. Oh, I can't do that. I can't. Thank you for asking so much. I wish I could remember it. I remember some of it because, let's see. I don't know where this road is going to end. Oh, no, that's not the first one. I don't know. It's about all the stuff I don't know. Then it goes, let's see. I don't know where this road is going to end. I only know I'm too tired to travel on. So I reach through the darkness and try to find a friend. And they just tell me you don't always get just what you want. I may go back to Tennessee, I may go to hell. In front of me, but one thing I can tell is that I never was a woman when I was that winter up in Michigan, and I never really wanted to have to say goodbye. And it doesn't really matter what distant star I wish upon, it falls from the sky. And I never was warmer than I was that winter up in Michigan. So I remember that one.
Well, that was a partial performance of a relatively early and still mostly lost Rich Mullins song called Michigan. And that was recorded at the Cornerstone Festival in 1994 by a guy named Scott Hansen. And Scott has graciously allowed us to share that song on Ragamuffin Archive, but you can go watch the full concert over on his YouTube channel. And I asked Beth Lutz about that song, and it's one that she definitely remembered, but she told me she actually can't find that one, and she's looked on her many, many, many tapes. And so that song was presumed lost until that video was uploaded by Scott. And then fans started leaving comments on Scott's videos going, hey, what is that song? Rich is playing this song at the end. I don't know this one. And so it was a partial performance because a fan in the audience asked Rich to play it. It was just a request that somebody was throwing out at him. And you can actually hear at the beginning, Rich kind of reluctantly saying, really, I don't know it. I don't remember it. Sorry, I can't do that one. But he reluctantly plays a little bit of the song, maybe about a minute that he remembered. And I got to tell you, I'm so glad that he did. And I really do hope that someday the full song surfaces because it is an absolutely gorgeous song with just stunning lyrics. Well, Beth did tell me a little bit about the song Michigan, and it was written during a time in Rich's life when he was traveling a lot. Back in 1983, he was going back and forth between Nashville, Cincinnati, and Michigan. And at the time, he was working for Kentwood Christian Church up in Michigan, and so that, was part of the inspiration that went into that song. Well, as we're winding down, we do have a few more songs to go, and this next performance comes from the famous Lufkin concert. Yeah, I mentioned that video earlier in the show. This song comes from the Lufkin concert that was taped 26 years ago this month. And once again, here's Chris Marchand to talk about the song that we're going to play, While the Nations Rage.
Wow. The nations are going to do what they are going to do, aren't they? And what they do is rage. They're going to go to war. They're going to take from their people. They're going to plot and scheme and do all manner of horrible, vain things. It was a nation, after all, and a justice system that condemned Jesus to death, wasn't it? We shouldn't be so surprised, should we? Maybe the problem is when we think these things don't apply to our country. And the other problem is when we grow so calloused and cynical about it all. What if instead we were filled with hope? Knowing that he who laid down his life willingly, rather than taking up the sword, is the one we are to look to. The nails and the thorns are transformed into love. They turn into rust. They fade away. But love and forgiveness and victory over the schemes of any nation, those are what remain. It's better than anything any country could ever dream up.
Nations rage. Why do they plot and scheme? Their bullets can't stop the prayers we pray in the name of the Prince of Peace. We've all get bathed and written long ago how they killed him and then how the third day he rose. Things may look bad, things may look grim, but all these things must pass except the things that are of him. Where are the nails? You see his hands. Well, the nails have turned to rust, but behold the man. He's risen and he reigns in the hearts of the children rising up in his name. Where are the thorns to his blood? Well, the thorns have turned to dust, but not so the love he's given. No, it remains in the hearts of the children who love all the nations rage. The Lord in heaven laughs, 'cause he knows what is to come. While all the chiefs of state plan their big attacks against his anointed one, the church of God shall not bend her knees to the gods of this world. They promise her peace. She stands her ground, stands firm on the rock. When she walks on the down, when she lives out his love. Where are the nails? You see his hands. Well, the nails have turned to rust, but behold the man. He's risen and he reigns in the hearts of the children rising up in his name. With all the thorns in his blood, well, the thorns have turned to dust, but not so the love he is given. No, it remains in the hearts of the children who love all the nations rage.
I think the song The Howling is a companion piece to The Land of My Sojourn. In this song, Mullins gives voice to the native peoples of our land who have had so much taken from them. So much loss of life, of land, of culture. Sometimes all you can do is howl. It's another sound, another voice from creation. Creation praises, but creation also weeps. And with it, we are to weep and wail and moan ourselves. Sometimes all you can do is cry out to God. This song to me is an invitation to lament and be in grief about this part of our nation's history. It's something we carry with us and are sensitive about when we become too proud of our laws and history, and when we meet an indigenous brother or sister. We carry this with us as a scar, a reminder of what was, what still is, and how someday there will be healing. God, may you bring your justice, and may we be about our Father's business in this land.
I can see the iron horse's tracks pressed in the mud from the weight of all the steam and the steel. Wind don't blow where you want it to go. The wind just blows where it will and you follow. I can feel the breath of winter driving the snow across these newly whited plains. Takes my breath from me and leaves me falling. Picks me up again in its own string. I can hear the wild wind howling. I can feel it in my bones. And I know the howling will take me home. I can see some traveler's footprint. There's a little blood in every step he made. Wonder what kind of burden he is bearing that has cut him so deeply every step along the long, long way. In the west I see an evening, scarlet thread stretched beneath the gathering dark. Red is the blood on the hands of the Savior, which is the mercy that flows from his broken heart. Can hear the wild wind howling. I can feel it in my bones. And I know that the howling will take me home. These men of violence, well, they have made this a world full of wars. God, break your silence and let your justice shine forth. Show some mercy, Lord. So I can see a people dispossessed, broken but brave in the face of so much fear, driven from their homes by the greed of your nation, whose treaties are as good as litter on the trail of their tears. I can see the covenant colors, sun and the rain are woven on the blue of the sky. I know we will live by his promise. I know you made it, I'm sure that it would not lie. I can hear the wild wind howling. I can feel it in my bones. And I know that the howling will take me home. Take me home.
Well, that was another performance from that concert taped during the LeSEA Broadcasting Seminar, South Bend, Indiana, back in '94. And that was just a tremendous performance by Rich and Beaker of the song The Howling. And, that's going to do it for this special edition of Ragamuffin Archive Revisited. Hey, Chris, thank you so much again for joining us this week and sharing some great insight into all these incredible Rich Mullins songs.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's been nice. Really gave me a chance to reflect, and again, like, his songs make us think about a whole bunch of things, especially about our country at once. And so I'm kind of holding all those things in tension, but hopefully in a beautiful way.
Well, before we end tonight, we've got one more song, and of course we cannot leave before we play this one. Of course, I'm talking about the song Here in America. And that was released in 1993 on the album Liturgy, a Legacy, and a Ragamuffin Band. But Rich wrote it nearly 2 decades earlier, in 1976. And the version that we're going to play in a moment was recorded during that sacred music concert that Rich performed at Erlanger United Methodist Church in Erlanger, Kentucky. It was back in 1977, maybe just about a year after he wrote the song. But before we play it, Chris, I'd like to ask you a bit about this song, because I have to say, Here in America has always been one of my absolute favorite Rich Mullins songs. It's easily in like my top 5 of Rich's songs. So I just love to get some of your thoughts and insight into that song, Here in America, before we close out the show.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of main things I want to say about it. The first is that as much as this is a general song and it's just beautiful, it takes me to a place. And it's a place that I've been many times in my life. And I don't know, what's kind of interesting is my brother, he moved out to Virginia when he got married and he got a job after college. And I visited him numerous times. And so what that means is I've driven through Appalachia or, the Smoky Mountains and all of these areas numerous times in my life. And I'm the kind of person that I associate places with songs or songs with places, right? So, I mean, I can't help but, once I start driving through Ohio and I get into these foothills and, you work your way down through West Virginia, Maryland, the Carolinas, Tennessee, I'm humming this song for miles and miles on end. And I have a number of songs like that. And this is one of the main songs. When I think of a place, this song just pops into my head and just kind of happens. The other aspect that I would say about this song, and you heard it, if you go back and listen to a lot of the songs, the place-based songs that you included in your song list for this program, the sounds, the words themselves evoke the feeling of the place. You can almost hear it. I don't know how he does it. It's kind of it's that beautiful trick of the poet, of the artist, that we can hear the rushing of the water. We can feel the stars up in the sky. So there's something about the lyrics themselves that evokes the place. The place itself comes alive. And I think that's one of the main reasons we're continually drawn to the song. It has a beautiful melody. I mean, it's gorgeous. And there's many beautiful melodies, and counter melodies throughout the song. But the lyrics complement those melodies. And the whole song just comes alive.
Thanks, Chris. Well, to end the show tonight, here's Here in America. Have a great week.
Saints and children, we have gathered here to hear the sacred story, and I'd gladly bring it to you with my best rhyming and rhythm, 'cause I know the thirsty listen, and down to the waters come, and the Holy King of Israel loves me here in America. And if you listen to my songs, I hope you hear the water falling. I hope you feel the ocean crashing on the coasts of North New England. And I wish that I could be there just to see them. 2 summers past I was, and the Holy King of Israel loves me here in America. And if I were a painter, I do not know which I'd paint. The calling of the ancient stars, or assembling of the saints. And there's so much beauty around us, but just 2 eyes to see. But everywhere I go, I'm looking. And once I went to Appalachia, for my father, he was born there. And I saw the mountains waking with the innocence of children. And my soul, it's still there with them, wrapped in the songs they brought. And the Holy King of Israel loves me here in America. And I've seen on the highways by 1,000,000 exit ramps the two-legged memorials to the laws of happenstance, waiting for four-wheeled messiahs to take them home again. But I'm home anywhere, as long as you are where I am. And if you listen to my songs, I hope you hear the water falling. I hope you feel the ocean crashing on the coasts of North New England. And I wish that I could be there just to see them. 2 summers past I was, and the Holy King of Israel loves me here in America.
For the past 2 hours, you've been listening to Rich Mullins in America, a special presentation of Ragamuffin Archive Revisited. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on social media. It's Ragamuffin Archive on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also reach me by email at ragamuffinarchive@gmail.com. And of course, you can always leave a comment on YouTube. The song you're hearing is Ted Yoder's cover of Here in America from his album Lean In. You can find more of his music at tedyoder.com or on Bandcamp. Join us next time for another deep dive into the archive. I'm Joe Cook. Have a great week and a happy 4th of July.